Okay, yay! You are off to a great start. Past the intro, into part one. This is exciting. Hey, friend, welcome to part one of the Big Move Bootcamp. I am so excited to be getting started on this with you, so let's hop into it. In this section, we're going to cover what a mood board is and ways to use them throughout your brand, terms that you should know. We're going to talk about the branding process and elements of a brand identity. So let's go ahead and hop into it. So what is a mood board? Mood boards are a collection of different visual assets and inspiration that help evoke a specific feeling of a brand and represent the overall expression of who that brand is. So your mood board is all about really expressing what the vibe, the emotion, the personality that you want your brand to make your audience, your followers, the people that you want to connect with, what you want them to feel. That's what your mood board is for. It's to help you represent that. So before you go into your design process, that you can make sure that your mood board really represents the mood that you want your brand to have. And if you look here, these are three mock mood boards that I created. 3 different looks, 3 different vibes for some mock brands that I want to create. You can see this first one, it's beach, earthy. I'm getting more calm vibes, peaceful wholeness. The second one, something about the black in there. In the purple, the green, it's just rich. It's giving very much lux. That's what we're going through. Getting from that one. The third one, we're vibrant, fun, bright, very much 90s vibes. It's very nostalgic for me. It just makes me feel good when I look at it. So that's what you're wanting to get when you create a mood board. You're wanting to evoke an emotion, make people feel a type of way, in a good way, in a way that represents and makes them feel connected to your brand. So your mood board, it's the bridge between conception and creation of your brand. So after you have your brand strategy session, you figure out the value, the purpose, and all the things that make up who your brand is and what you stand for. Before you get to the brand identity phase, or as you get to the brand identity phase, that's when your mood board will come in. You know what your goals are, who the people are, what you do, who you serve, all that good stuff. And now you're going to work on, how do I want to make them feel? How do I want to, what design is going to help me evoke that emotion that helps me to engage and connect with my ideal audience and hit my goals? So it's the bridge between conception to creation. So this is the mood board that I created for my brand. The image of me I added later. I had a different image there, but once I actually took the pictures, I added this on there. But what happened was I was searching diligently. I was going in a different direction with the feeling, with the colors. But when I would show it to, trusted people, my mom, my besties, they were just like, oh yeah, that's cute. But it wasn't giving what it was supposed to give. And so I'm searching Pinterest. I knew I wanted to, eventually I was like, I know I want to use greens and peach and coral, that kind of soft, feminine, but still bright, bold, fun colors. And I came across this color palette on Pinterest. And a couple of these images were already on here. The one with the couch, these snow cones, and I don't remember which one, which other one, but they were already on a mood board, and I was like, that is the vibe that I'm going for. So I took the examples that they had and I tweaked the colors to make them more of what I wanted, because I wanted a green and then more of a teal, a blue green, a red orange. I knew I wanted to use like a true peach and then a corally color. So I tweaked the colors until I got the color palette that I wanted, and then I was able to find more images that fit that mood. And then once I showed this to my family and to my friends, And to some other women that I'm connected with who are entrepreneurs, they were like, that's it. And I was like, so what words are you getting? And they were throwing out woman, feminine, vintage, bold, classic, like really the word and the vibe that I was going for. Bold and, exciting. So that's what I was going for. And once I showed them this version, those were the words that they were shooting out. So I knew I had hit the mark with that one. And that's really what you have to do when you're creating a mood board. And we'll get into that in a later section. But you got to get feedback to make sure that it's not just you're seeing it, but no one else is. But we'll talk about that later. And this, I showed this one, but this is a mock mood board that I made for no particular brand, but I had this color palette. So on the one that I created, there was a mood board, some images that inspired my color palette. Excuse me. They inspired my color palette. They helped me to tweak and get my color palette right. On this one, my color palette that I already had inspired these images. So I went and searched for images that matched the mood of this. I knew I wanted it to feel like a spa, like a retreat, like somewhere you go for wholeness and wellness. And so this one is giving very much wellness coach, health and wellness, mental health. Take care of yourself, get in touch with your womanhood, get in touch with the earth. That's what this one is giving. And I use these colors to pull images. And then this was a mood board that I saw on Pinterest, and I thought it was really pretty. And then what they were saying, they were going for femininity. It represents energy, being in touch with womanhood, life coaching, and I think they pulled it off well because it feels very feminine, and it feels energy with the waves here and the light here. They did a good job pulling images because it evokes that kind of emotion and those kind of feelings. And then this was another one that I saw on Pinterest that I thought was great. This is a wedding photographer. And with hers, she was going for more of a luxe feel, succulent, long, because when you think of succulents, they last a long time. And that's really a good representation of what brides and grooms are coming into their marriage for. So I think that was a good choice. The evergreens, I didn't even notice the evergreens last time, but that's really good because not only are you representing a mood and an emotion, but you're representing what you're wanting for your clients. The evergreens, the succulents, those things that last a long time, that are strong. This was better than I even thought. I didn't even notice the evergreens the first time. But also still luxurious with the black and the gold. So yeah, I thought this was a good one. And then of course she's a wedding photographer. You see the happy smiling couple on there as well. And I wanted to mention she liked handwritten style fonts. Okay, so those are some examples of mood boards. But what should your mood board include? All right, so obviously it should include images, things that inspire you, things that you want, the mood, the feeling that you want your brand to have, the colors. It doesn't have to be your exact color palette yet. It doesn't have to be the exact imagery that you want to use. It doesn't have to be the exact fonts and typography. But you want to include the things that inspire you, that you're leaning towards, so that once you work with a designer or a branding strategist and they're coming up with a plan for the identity of your brand, you want to make sure that you have a good example of what you're wanting, what you're leaning towards. So images, colors, fonts, typography, textures, patterns, styles. You can see she has the different patterns on here. Next to the succulent, she has this other floral pattern, and then this pattern here. And on mine, I include the stripes. I really like geometric shapes, flowers. That's really what I was going for, so I made sure to include that throughout. the mood board. So you want to include, in the typography, I like vintage style fonts, and then simple. So you see the Be Bold, it's the sans serif font. It has no feet on there, but also the New York font, I really like. It's bold, it's strong, and it gives that kind of retro vintage feel. And so you want to use those kind of images that represent the vibe, and the type of assets that you want included, the type of font, the type of images, the colors that are similar to what you're going for. That's what your mood board should include. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the types of mood boards. So of course you can do a physical mood board. The physical mood boards are really great because they're for, especially for tactile people. You like to be able to feel something. I am a tactile person myself. I like to be able to feel. I don't use a lot of online planning and digital. Even though I'm a designer and a lot of the stuff I do is digital, I really love a good planner I can write in. I'm a notebook hoarder. So that's what the physical mood boards are for, because you're able to see and touch. You can use texture, like actual, not just images, pictures of texture, but you can put actual textures. So if you're including like fur or faux fur, if you're including fur or wood or some type of metal or something like that, you can have that on your board and actually feel it. You could put a scent on there so that when you walk by and the breeze blows the scent into your nose, you feel inspired, and it puts you in a good mood. So that's a great benefit about using a physical mood board. Of course, you can make them out of paper. You can scrapbook them, use corkboard or foam boards to create those. What I'm going to have you all do is the digital mood board, which is just as effective. It's just you get the visual without the sensory things that you can include. The benefits is it's an easier process. You're able to just find, you don't have to print, you don't have to cut, you don't have to glue and do all those things. You're able to find, copy, paste, crop, and put things together. You can use Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, and other mood board creator tools, which I haven't used a mood board creator tool, but in the workbook, which we'll talk about, there are options that you could try out to create a mood board. What can you use mood boards for? Of course, when you're creating a brand identity, redesigning, relaunching your brand, a mood board is great for that because it helps you to really get laser focused and hone in on, okay, so what changes am I making in this rebrand? This is where I am now. What is the new expression, the new personality I want my brand to represent? You can make them for clients. If you are a creator, any type of creator, even if you are a hairstylist, you can create a mood board for the look. If you're doing a wedding party, a makeup artist, different things like that. Whatever fills you in, you can find a reason to create a mood board for your clients, and it just adds extra value, and it helps to make sure that you and your client are on the same page. And it's especially great for product launches, for yourself or for your client. When you're creating a new product and you want to make sure everybody's on the same page, you want to make sure that it expresses what you want it to express, then that's a great use for a mood board. So why do mood boards matter? Which we've already been talking about, but creating your mood board is one of the most important steps in your branding process. It helps you narrow down your vision with succinct inspiration. It speaks for your brand without words, clearly communicating the feel and expression of the brand. Your mood board helps you to figure out the vibe and the expression, which I've talked about. But as you're collecting It's like, I like this pattern, I like this color, I like this type of imagery. Creating the mood board helps you to put those things together and see if they actually work together, if it's actually giving off the feeling that you want it to give, if it's helping your audience to really know who your brand is before they even get to know you. The mood board is going to help you to create the brand identity that's going to go out to your clients. And so you want to make sure that it's clear at that mood board process. And so that's why a mood board is so important. It helps you to really narrow in your focus and where you want your brand to go identity and design wise. Okay, so next we're going to talk about some terms that you should know so that I can be sure that we're all on the same page. We're going to talk about what your business company is, branding, brand identity, and then what a mood board versus a brand board versus a brand guide is. Whoops, too far. All right, so let's talk about business versus brand identity versus branding. Your business or your company is what you actually do. It's what you sell. It's the real part of who you are. It's what you actually do. Your brand is the relationship between the business and the customer. Your brand is what your audience, your followers, your clients, what they perceive about the business. So your brand is what your audience thinks your business is. Not what you actually do, but what they think about it. Your brand identity is the design of the brand in the business. It's the visual elements that we can see. So your brand is intangible. It's just what people think about your business. Your brand identity is the tangible part of your brand that we can see, your colors, your logo. It's the part that we can, technically touch. The graphics, the images that make up the identity and the visual design of your brand. So that's what your brand identity is. Your branding, brand ing, that's the actions that you take to shape the perception of your brand. So your brand is what people think about your business. Your branding is what you do to help shape what people think about your business, because a brand, it could be a runaway train if you aren't helping to shape people's perception. What people believe about your brand should be because of what you're putting out, and not just because of, they just made it up, but you should be shaping and leading and guiding the perception that people have about your brand. Okay, so I want you to pause right here after this, and I want you to go to your workbook, and you're going to answer a few questions about your business versus your brand versus your brand identity and your branding. So, for example, and you're going to go to page 4 through 5 to work on this. So, you're going to answer the questions. For example, if for Audacious Ceanti Creative Studio, my business, what I actually do is provide branding, web design, social media strategy for women entrepreneurs, creative professionals. That's what I actually do. My brand, what I want people to think and what people are thinking, and really what I want them to think, what I want you all to think, is that my brand is about being bold, being fearless, helping people create iconic identities online. That's what I want my brand to be. My business is creating websites, creating branding, social media strategy. My brand is creating iconic identities for audacious entrepreneurs and creative professionals and legacy builders. Bold, being overcoming fear, self limitations, so that we as women entrepreneurs can step into the life that we believe God designed for us. That's what I want my brand to be. When people think of Audacious Ceanti Creative Studio, that it's more than web design. It's about changing someone's life and helping them to become the super amazing, dope boss woman that they already are. My brand identity, you can see it through the slides, colorful, bright, feminine. That's a representation of the identity. But you see my logos, you see my colors, icons and graphics that I use. You see that throughout this slideshow. So that's the part of my brand that you can actually see. My branding, what I'm doing to help shape the perception, my website, what I post on Instagram, the content that I put out, how I market, that's a part of my branding. That's what I'm using to shape the way my brand, my business is perceived. The images that I take, that is all a part of my branding to help shape the perception of my brand. So pause here, answer those questions, and then come back and let's continue. Okay, so now very quickly, let's talk about what the process of branding looks like. So in order to shape the perception of your brand, to create a brand, to really create a brand strategy, all of those things, you have to go through the process of branding. And what that starts with, of course, is research. You first do research on your competitors, on your industry, on the audience that you want to create. Then you go to strategy, and that's where you're actually laying out who your brand is, your purpose, your vision, your values, who you serve, who that ideal audience is, how you serve them, what your goals are. That's all going to be included in your strategy. Then your identity, which is where you actually create the look and feel. Everybody's favorite part, my favorite part, that's the fun part of creating your brand, is the brand identity. And then lastly, your implementation phase. Implementation is going to include your touch points. It's going to include, things like your website, social media, creating blogs, marketing. Implementation is how you get your brand out into the world. All the different pieces that you need so that your audience can find you, get to know you. That's what implementation is. It's how do we take our strategy and our identity and get that out into the world. Okay, next, let's talk about the elements of brand identity. So these are the things that once you have your strategy, once you've created your mood board, all of that good stuff, you're going to use your mood board to inform how these elements are created. So you have, and we'll go through each one, but really quickly, your logo, your font / typography, color palette, patterns and textures, photography and animation, illustration and iconography, audio, the layout, tone of voice, your taglines or motto, and then a bonus, number 11, is your personal style. How what you actually wear, what you look like, also is a part of your brand identity. So let's go to logos. Just so you're clear on what logos are, of course, these are logos. You see Amazon with the arrow from A to Z, because you can get everything on Amazon from A to Z. FedEx, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. I found this graphic. I can't believe they don't have Nike on here. Nike might be on the icons. But these are logos. And so your logo is really, it's not the only part of your brand identity, but it is a very important part, because that's going to be the main thing that people see the most, that's really going to stick to their mind. So you want to make sure your logo is something that naturally, is memorable and naturally attracts your audience. You don't want something that's ew, I hate that, I don't want to work with them. Your identity is very important. So you want to make sure that your logo is designed well. Then you have fonts and typography. And so you can just see all the different type of fonts. Like here, the Arial Black. And we'll talk more about this, but that's a sans serif font. And then you have your script fonts. And then you have your decorative fonts. And you have your serif fonts, but we'll talk more about those. But font is very important because you want to make sure that it's legible, that it's clear, but it's still distinctive. It's a lot to think about when creating a logo and deciding on fonts for your branding. Then next, of course, you have a color palette. So this is just one that I saw on Pinterest that I thought was pretty, and it's giving me very much 80s, 90s too. But your color palette is very important. And honestly, color palette, I maybe should put that as number one, because you need to figure out your color palette before you actually create the logo. But these aren't in order of when they should be created. These are just the 10 plus a bonus elements of the brand identity. Because you definitely want to start with the the color palette. The next, you can include pattern and texture. And pattern is just something to be careful about. And your patterns and textures, they don't have to be used in your logo, of course. This can be if you have a brick and mortar business, how you include it in the business, where it's used in the space, graphics, images. Do you take pictures, your branding photos? Is that on a city street? You're going for sleek and modern and are futuristic, or are you going for earthy, woodsy, rugged? So that's the kind of thing to think about and consider for your brand. What patterns, what type of patterns, what type of textures would you include? Because your brand identity is more than just your graphics. It's more than just your logo. It's like I said, where you take branding photos, when you have an event, how is it set up? What type of building, what type of location works for your events? If you have a brick and mortar building, how should it be? How should the interior design look? The architecture, how does it help to just dig in the identity of your brand? Your photography and animation, of course, that's an important part. What do your pictures look like? For this photo shoot, I was going for clean but still colorful, feminine, and very vintage, with the white desk and the gold. Going for that. And then this was an animation that I created for my logo when I was introducing the new logo. So you can see that is the animation. So what is your animation? How should it look? And this was just what I created. I haven't even put that out, because I'm not even sure if that's the one I want to use, but that's just an example for y'all to see. And then, oh wait, that was it. I put the play button there just so I would remember, because sometimes on the slide it's just white and I couldn't see that I had put a video there, so ignore the play button. It's just for us to remember that something was there. But your brand identity, the photography, the animation, all of this is so important, because it's going to, if you're saying that you're the $1 million brand coach, but all your pictures look like you took them on a 2010 iPhone, are you the $1 million brand coach, or are you just talking? You want to make sure that your brand identity represents and expresses what it should express to the audience that you're trying to reach. Okay, next, number 6, illustration and iconography. So you can see the icons on the Adidas logo. They have this little 3 flower thing. Yeah, I don't even know. Is it a flower? I don't think I've ever actually paid attention to what that is. But with the 3 stripes. And how do they use their iconography? How do they use the illustration on Adidas, on their clothes? It always includes the 3 stripes. When you see 3 stripes on, slow down, Ceanti. When you see 3 stripes on clothes, on shoes, you automatically think Adidas. Adidas used to be my favorite, so I really do. And then you see the Pepsi logo, the icon. When you see that, you know that's Pepsi. The C and the C. Without it, the word Chanel, the icon, we know that that's Chanel. And then the illustration. This is the illustration. This health insurance company uses. Slow down, Ceanti. They use illustrations in their marketing, on their graphics, different things like that. Should your brand include illustration? That's something to think about. Do you need an icon for your logo, so that even when the the font typography isn't there, that people still have a image, an icon that they associate with your brand. The McDonald's, what do you think of? The arches. Who else? Let's go back to the... Who else? Apple. You think of the Apple. So yeah, I don't really be at Baskin Robbins like that, but if I see that with the 31 in there, and theirs is really neat because of the 31 flavors or whatever, I forget the history, but yeah. Okay, so let's get back on point. Okay, so then audio. So let's take a second and listen to this. Audio could be a very memorable, important part of your brand identity. When you look at this Netflix thing, I know you already hear the sound in your head. When you see this Intel, I think Intel's is what theirs is like that, bum 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 bum, at a higher octave. But you hear it when you see it, and that's such a great part of brand identity because Audible. It's a sensory thing that really helps us to remember and identify and feel a way when we hear these things. And then I found this video on YouTube, and he has all kind of brand audio. So let's take a second and listen to that. Okay, and hopefully y'all can hear these, or I'll just insert it. But who's that? HBO. And we all know that's Disney. All right, but you can listen to those. I just wanted y'all to hear. So yeah, I think he has like 13 or something it said on there. But yeah, definitely take a second and play along and see which ones you remember. And then some of them, when I was listening to it, I didn't remember, but I was like, I know what that is. And then when it popped up, I was like, yes. But they evoke a feeling and emotion. They're connected to, oh yeah, we saw that movie. So audio is a good thing that a lot of times we don't think about, but it could really be a great asset to your brand identity. All right, let's move to number 8. Another one that I think we don't think about a lot is layout. How does your website laid out? Do you have a lot of negative space with white? Because even though I like color, I like mixing patterns and different things like that, I still very much like to have a lot of white space. To me, it just keeps it clean. It makes things more legible. It makes things easier to read and notice and stand out with the white space. So layout, you can see different websites, how they have them laid out. Large images, taking up the whole screen, or is yours more centered? These are things to think about, and keeping things consistent could be a very helpful asset to your brand to help people to be able to notice. Because the thing is, people don't notice when things are the same across the board when they're used to coming to you, but they will notice when you switched it up. They don't know what they're seeing all the time, but they know when it's different. So just being consistent and having the same look across the board on all the different touch points that your audience, your clients will come into contact with is just beneficial in creating a great client experience and helping your brand to be memorable, even though they don't know why it's memorable. All right, number 9, a very important part is the tone of voice. And I found this graphic that I thought had a very good, what is the word? Explanation? Definition. Voice So voice, this describes your company's personality. It's consistent and unchanging. Tone, the emotional inflection applied to your voice. It adjusts to what's suitable for a particular piece or marriage. Marriage. So your voice is how you speak. And your tone is the emotion, the feeling behind how you speak. And that's very important in your branding. In my branding, I try to be fun. I try to be upbeat in my voice and my tone. And then sometimes jokes and serious, but still fun. And I try to be clear. I use a lot of words, talk a mile a minute. And so that's how I speak in real life. So I try to include that in my graphics, in my blogs. I mean, not my graphics, in my posts, my content, in my blogs, to sound how I sound in real life. Something that I have to work on is when I write, I'm a very strong and, I don't know, my writing sometimes comes across more serious than I'm intending for it to. So I have to be mindful of that. Go in and add some contractions. Like, instead of saying we will, say will, Ceanti sometimes. Say don't. Add in these words. So I make sure that I proof my writing so it sounds like how I speak, how I sound in life. So I put y'alls in there. I put ain'ts. I say very much, and it's giving, and adding this type of language in there so that how I sound in person, on video, is how my writing is coming across. So that's something you want to be mindful of so that you're consistent across the board. All right, and then taglines. So a tagline can be a great part of your brand identity as well. We know Walmart, save money, live better. Nike, just do it. Disneyland, where dreams come true. Coca-Cola, I don't remember open happiness. I feel like Coca-Cola has had a couple ones. I don't remember that one. But Kodak, share moments, share life. Allstate is probably one of the most memorable to me. When you hear Allstate, you know you're in good hands. And you hear old boy's voice. I can't think of his name. No disrespect, sir. Love your work. You hear, are you in good hands? Are you in good hands? You hear that. You're in good hands with Allstate. McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. You know these. So these are good things to think about. Does your brand need a tagline? What is the condensed vision statement for your brand? And how do you express that? Just in a couple words or less. It's something very important and powerful to think about that sometimes I think we don't think about. And then your bonus is your personal style. How you dress, how you look, your appearance, when you go speak, does how you look match your brand identity? Are you edgy and preppy, classic, glamorous, bohemian, eclectic, bold, trendy? What is your look, your vibe? I knew someone who her brand was purple, and every time she spoke, in all of her images, on every stage, she would always wear purple, and I always loved that. So I I love flowers, and I've incorporated that into my branding. So I try to, when I'm when I'm going live, when I'm actually on camera, I wear flowers. Even in my image down here, this shirt, the white pattern is flowers. I try to include that throughout my branding as much as possible. When people think of flowers, they think of Ceanti. That's the goal. All right, now let's talk quickly about a mood board versus brand guide. And these are just things that you should know as you're going through rebranding and creating your brand. So when you're working with designers, brand strategists, and the different people who are a part of that process, that you know the lingo. So your mood board, which is what we'll be working on throughout this, is the starting point in designing your brand identity. It includes inspirational images that you may or may not use. So it doesn't have to have the exact images. It doesn't have to have the exact color codes. It doesn't have to have the exact anything on there. It's just the expression. Your brand board is another one-page sheet that has your actual color palette, your actual logo, the actual fonts and typography that you use, the actual style of inspiration photos, textures, patterns that you want to use. That's what's on your one-page brand board. Your mood board is fun and inspirational. It evokes feeling, expression. It's the vibe. Your brand board is the actual elements that you'll use in your brand identity. Okay, and on here it says your brand board is a finished sheet that contains your brand logo, submarks, icons, color palette, all that stuff. All right, and so a brand guide, aka and speaking of aka, a mood board may also be called a inspirational sheet, inspirational board, or inspiration board. Your brand board may be called a brand style sheet. Just so you know that you know those terminology, the different terminology that designers use. Okay, so a brand guide, like I was saying, aka brand style guide, brand book, brand Bible. That's a fun one. This is a more in-depth version of your brand board. Your brand board are the essentials that you could give to somebody that could take it and create graphics, create things for you. Your brand guide, your brand style guide, that's more for your team. That's more for, it still could be for designers, but it's more for your team and for you to know the, all of the workings and identity visuals of your brand. These are like your brand board is one page. A style guide is usually 20 or more pages. It includes the tone of your brand. It will include the type of words that you use, your story and messaging. It'll have example graphics. It'll have it could have an example like content posts, your brand images. It's going to have just everything so someone could look at that and know the complete identity, visual identity of your brand. And so you can see here is my mood board on the left. Excuse me. And here's my brand board on the right. So it has my exact colors with the codes, the hex codes, my logo, the icons, alternative logo, then my logo typography, my brand typography, because the logo typography, these are the fonts that I actually use in my logo, but I wouldn't use them throughout my website, on all my graphics and things like that, because they're super decorative, so they wouldn't be super easy to read. But I have a simpler font and then another script font. These are the type of patterns and textures that I use in my brand. Like my accent is gold, a pattern that I like, stripes, and then this one is flowers. And then these are inspirational images. For the mood board that I showed you earlier, you see the colors that she pulled from, the font. She liked that hand written type font. You can see her logo. It has that type of handwritten font for the ALF. ALF. But you can see these are her actual logos, the different variations of the logos, her actual colors, the patterns that she uses, different icons, social media icons. These are her brand fonts. And then here are inspirational images. And then real quick, let's take a look at this example brand guide. This is not one that I created. Of course, I found this one and I just liked it. So let's click and make sure the internet won't play you, girl. So you can see they have the table of contents. This one has looks like 50 pages. So that just tells you how much detail they go into. Apparently this one is about bikes. So they have the different logos, icons, illustrations. I love how just detailed it is about how the spacing of the logo should be, the kerning and all that good stuff, the color palette, how they work together. So you can just see the typography. It goes into a lot of detail so that anyone could take this and run with your brand. And here's what I'm talking about with the example graphics, different things like that. So that is a brand style guide or a brand guide. Let's close that. Okay, so that is the end of part 1. You made it through. We're going to be done at 45 minutes or less. I knew this was going to be the longest section because I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page when it came to the different terminology and different things that you should know, because your mood board is only one part. It's the first part of creating your brand identity. So just make sure that you answered those questions for part 1 in your workbook. So make sure you do that. Don't skip ahead in the workbook. Let's go to part 2 and then answer part 2, then go to watch part 3, answer part 3, just so that you're working pace. Don't feel the need to binge these sections. Watch them, let it soak, let it marinate, do the work that you have for that workbook section, and then come back when you're ready to implement part 2. But definitely come back. You paid for this, utilize this so you can create your brand mood. All right, I will see you in part 2.